Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zola, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are in a month dedicated to this theme of protectors and defenders, sponsored by Flying Lion and Nokia, so thank you for that. And we are very pleased to have with us Speedbird Aero today. Lots of changes on the show. We are global, we are live. And so who we have with us here today is Veruska Diaz. She is the CSO and general manager for Speedbird in Europe, which we're going to get some exciting news there. And Manoel Coelho is the CEO. He is in Brazil, having a heck of a time dialing in. So we'll see if we get Manuel or not. For those that are tracking, us on LinkedIn, you probably were expecting to see Yoli from Can Do Drones. Yoli's in Israel, and we'll talk about it later, but big announcements coming up with a whole bunch of different companies joining together, and we're going to save that for later. So we're going to start the show with Veruska, and we're going to go from there. It's going to be awesome. And Veruska, so great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here also and be part of the channel also and contribute and give you the good news about Speedbird for sure.
I know, this is great. Well, before we talk about Speedbird, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. I am Brazilian, so born in São Paulo, but I am here in Europe. I am aerospace engineer, working with aviation almost 15 years, half of this time with drones, what I think it's an amazing area, and advanced air mobility, where I also developed in my master and PhD. I am part of different working groups, so I love the area. I love this market. I believe is the future of our aviation, about sustainability and everything will help us with mobility. So I am developing with your other colleagues of this area new regulation, being part of JARO's working group, for example, and very excited about the area. So again, it's a pleasure to be here and discuss this topic that I love.
So I should be calling you doctor is what I should be calling you. So that's
No, Veruska,
what
it's
an
fine.
incredible background. So how did you get started with Speedbird Aero?
I joined Speedbird almost 4 months now. I basically worked before at Accenture in Germany as consultant, and I follow Speedbird a lot of years since they opened the company in basically 2017, and the technology. I am highlighting the technology in my reports, and since the last years. So for me, the company, it was amazing. Oh, it's amazing. I decided to change and accepted these challenges since Manoel told me about the next step of the company connected with internationalization. So I am here coordinating the internationalization and join it as a chief strategy officer, basically.
That's incredible. So we've had Manuel on the show before. We know about the origin story for the company. How Manuel and his partner were involved in kind of medical deliveries and logistics, and were inspired to get some of those packages out there quicker and to more remote places. And new drone technology would be the way to do that. Here's a picture. I love this drone. I love the logo, all of it. And so, here we are full circle, and you're talking about internationalization was the word you use. So tell us, they hired you and you're in Portugal. What's going on? What is the update on Speedbird Aero since we last left off the story?
Yes. So we during the last year, basically we basically we have more than 27,000 missions and flights in commercial way. So it's a lot if we consider the where we are in terms of industry, right, in general. So after this milestone for the company, and we started receiving a lot of requests from different countries, and we are following the regulatory developments here in Europe. So basically, we decided that now it was the right time to open a new office. And basically, we studied the market together and decided that Portugal could be a very good option for us. First of all, because we have the majority of our certifications, the firsts, like you say, the first is with ANAC Brazil. So the Portuguese language is a common thing that is helping us in this certification translation now to European standards and everything. So it was a very important step for us. And also we have very good connections in thinking about also the cultural aspects. So we decided that Portugal was the right place to start this internationalization. For sure, the company has operations in different countries. For example, Singapore, it's high. Our drones are there in different places. But now thinking about focus in EMEA, we decided open a new certification and business office here in Portugal. It just happened here in Porto. We are located inside of the Leonesa Business Hub, is one of the biggest here in Portugal. And that's it. From here, we will coordinate some operations in EMEA and also APAC. And I hope we can also expand faster with this new office here.
Well, I have to say, I've never been to Portugal. I've always wanted to visit. Porto is high on my list. Now I've got absolutely a reason to go there, just beyond pleasure. So hopefully I'll get to visit. By the way, everybody, Manuel has joined us, and hopefully we'll be able to get him in here soon in a second. Like I said, he's coming to us from Brazil. And so here he is. Yay. Okay. So that's the fun of having a live stream that is global. I mean, this is amazing. You're both coming to us from around the world. And Manuel, I know you've been traveling extensively. So excited to have you here and also to meet Veruska and understand a little bit more about your internationalization and this European front, if you will, that you've now opened up with this hub in Portugal. So Manuel, I'm going to go to you. Tell us a little bit, Veruska mentioned that, it just made sense, shared common language, culture. As you look to the European market and, what are your hopes in achieving by building a hub there?
Well, thank you, Don. Much appreciated. Sorry, I'm on the road today, traveling here. So if my communication is not very clear, let me know. My number one focus was to introduce Veruska today to all of you as our new Chief Strategy Officer, and then obviously our advancement into the European market on the certification front as well. As you know very well, most of the CAAs around the world are based themselves on the SORA rules that Veruska was part of it, helping build, and is an active member of the Gyros group, which will have some news as well. So we're always cooperating in learning and sharing our experience. And I believe the move to enter the European market through Portugal, as you mentioned, there are some cultural similarities and proximities, and the language as well. Most of our team also speak Portuguese. The rules are aligned, even with both, even the names of the civil aviation authorities are similar. ANAC in Brazil, ANAC in Portugal. One obviously is under the IASA, right? But they both have incredible proximity and cooperation because of the manned aircraft and civil aircraft, military aircraft that they produce and cooperate. So therefore, we felt it was the right time to do it. The rules in Europe are more advanced, in our opinion, than in any other part of the world today. So we wanted to make sure that we did not miss the opportunity to be at this juncture in time participating on the conversation, learning and adjusting our systems to obtain the highest levels of robustness for us to actually operate and scale our operations, even in Brazil or in different parts of the world that we operate in today. So our arrival in Europe is much needed also to unlock, even I would say in the US, showing what we are doing and being able to substantiate with evidence, the robustness of the solution, the pragmatic way to which we operate, not only from a regulatory perspective, but also from safety, security. We're talking about here, homeland security as well. A lot of the things that we'll be talking about actually addresses, and one of the reasons why we partner with Can Do Drones in Israel with Highlander goes through the plan as well of operating in Israel today, even with more complex airspace being controlled. How can we assure the security? First of all, we have the right partners, we have the right solutions. Partnering with Can Do and Highlander allow us today to operate in Israel under an UTM that's connected to the backbone of the country. And therefore, we're doing exactly the same thing in Brazil, and we hope to be cooperating. We already with other UTMs in different parts of the world. So therefore, our work that now it's concentrated via Veruska's efforts is to bring all this wealth of information and now making it very intentional to certify the aircraft and be able to actually expand the operations and demonstrating the level of maturity and robustness of our solutions. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Yeah, no. So smart plan. I wish the U.S. was as far ahead as some of these other countries in terms of, leaning forward on the regulatory front. I think we have a lot of hope and dreams for 2025 and a Part 108 rule, but that's not really come to fruition. So we'll see, right? But in the meantime, Manuel, you were on my leadership podcast, The Full Tilt, and I remember your theme was leading by doing, and you're still doing that. You're leading by doing, and I love that you do that. Speaking of love, Mark Ganug is out there. He is a super fan. He's coming to us from the Nevada test site, and he's saying that he loved Lisbon. So, Mark, thanks for joining us, and everybody else out there. By the way, we are live, so if you've got questions about what Speedbird is up to, why you're up, tell us more about Porto, jump in the chat or just tell us where you're from, give us positive encouragement. We love all of that. So I want to talk for a second about, I'm going to go back to Veruska and, since you've been involved in standards bodies, and I went to Amsterdam Drone Week earlier this year, where there was a lot of discussion of U-Space, right, which is the UTM regulation, which this year became essentially, or was it 2023, where it was kind of the trigger for implementation. And the feeling I got walking away from that show was, there was this on the side of the civil aviation authorities, I think, a little bit of frustration in terms of, you made this really hard for us and we don't really know how to implement it. So, I'm just curious, Veruska, like you were in Germany, you're now in Portugal, what are you seeing? Because, you have a regulation, we don't even have that in the US. And, you would think that would be the thing that would open the door. Are you seeing, certifications at that state level, a little bit more UTM happening across Europe right now?
It's a very good question. I can say that during the last 5 years, basically, we developed a lot of standards. So I think this was the first challenge. So comparing, for example, standards for commercial aviation, and we can say about ASTM or we can say about Aero. So right. We started from there. We had very good programs, for example, the Shepherd program under EASA, to discuss the standards first, right? And do this first check about what is compatible with the UAS reality. and what must be created, what must be adapted. So I think this was the first achievement. I think we have this milestone. We can say here in Europe in general, this first approach is concluded. But now we have this new challenge, like you mentioned it. So, okay, so now how can we adjust the national treatment about the airspace, what is also different, and put everyone inside of the same standard, the same European regulation, right? That was high level first, after going for standard, and now going to national levels. We can see difference in terms of maturity in different countries here. So some countries started, for example, I can mention Germany, for example, we started with real integrations and sandbox. Italy also, we already see in Rome, for example, sandbox focused in UTM, and some countries, for example, Portugal, with the specific conditions for airspace. For example, here you cannot just release an OTAN and segregate part of the airspace and fly. You need more in terms of systems for beacon missions as a drone.
Oh,
so,
like conspicuity to be able to be
exactly.
seen,
You
or
cannot just
yeah,
segregate the airspace and think that you will accept non-cooperative aircraft. So here,
right.
for example, is a requirement. You must basically provide DAA and provide ground infrastructure also with cameras that will help you in this identification. So we are now, what I can see from here is that the interpretation at national level is still different. So we have the standards for sure, but now we are in this phase, and from now on, in my opinion, is where we will see how the countries will adapt itself to basically receive this regulation, receive this standard that is more connected at system level, and will adapt with also the national rules they have for airspace segregation or for traffic identification, for example. So now we started seeing at national level real UTM implementation with the common information layer and the specific standards and requirements that we have connected with the CAAs or the service providers we have in each country.
No, so that's great. I'm going to go to Manuel because, Veruska mentioned a number of things, short-term infrastructure, detect and avoid, ground-based radars or ground-based surveillance. Lots of requirements. And Manuel, you've been doing, let's call it UTM. I'm going to do air quotes, right? In Brazil. You've been working, as you mentioned, with Candu and Highlander in Israel. So tell us a little bit, again, I think most people, when they think about protectors and defenders, they're thinking law enforcement, they're thinking defense, military. But, people that are involved in counter-UAS, people that are involved in UTM, they're protecting and defending our skies at the same time, almost by necessity. So tell us, what your experience has been in Brazil in terms of protecting and defending those skies through your UTM, and how you feel that this will transfer easily into Portugal and other areas of Europe.
Well, that's a great question. And I think the biggest threats will come from within, right? In terms of drones, especially in the US and Brazil, continental countries, we need to ensure that we understand friend and foe. What drones are actually, uh, legal, flying legally. I can tell you in Brazil, each country has different nuances in regards to security concerns. Brazil is not necessarily, terrorism is drug trafficking, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we are obviously in a country that is not a production, but it is a gateway to Europe, gateway to many locations around the world. So therefore, drug trafficking, including a big consumer market like the U.S. So Brazil is the biggest consumer market for drugs. We're operating now in ports in Brazil, so doing cargo, ship to shore. But the first question from the federal police and others is, can you do surveillance? We have actually, we already have divers diving under ships to put stuff on. We have drones actually flying to the ships that are not your drones. They've been doing this. The illegal market has been doing this way longer. Drone delivery in prisons, delivering cell phones, delivering drugs, happen every single day in an unimaginable scale today in this country here, in many countries around the world. So the first thing is, how do you differentiate the drones that are actually regulated, that are certified, that are, remote ID like in the US, right? Brazil, we're still lagging behind. So we want to push the Brazilian authorities also, not only to pass, the remote ID for every single aircraft, but the new TM that they're doing that now, a little bit later, but they are advancing on the national backbone. And I think to see some of the questions here, every initiative will help, even with Wing and Zipline in the US, it will help develop the understanding or needs to be done. But obviously, it is important to be connected to the backbone of the traffic management, air traffic management in the US. That's what the Brazilian Air Force is doing. They're creating the backbone via the STM standards. Veruska can be much more precise than I am, but it's global standards that are being developed and followed, and will allow for competition, which is part of our country's belief that if we have 3, 4, 5, 10 different competitors offering the services, kind of like a telecommunications infrastructure, cell tower, right? Which multiple companies can use the same infrastructure as long
Yeah.
as they are following the same rules and they are interoperable. So if I'm like in Israel, if I'm using somebody else's UTM other than Highlander can still see me, right? We can still
Yeah.
detect and avoid each other.
Well, and
But
Manuel, you're raising a great point. I think that dovetails into this question from Steve Adams, who's asked a couple questions now. His question, by the way, is: will the Dallas UTM cooperation between Zipline and Wing for beyond visual line of sight accelerate UAS traffic management solutions in the United States, or distract from the need for a nationwide solution within the national airspace system? What you're talking about is, and Veruska can, I think, validate this, it's a performance-based standard. In other words, the FAA, the Portugal ANAC, the Brazilian ANAC might not necessarily tell you how to basically turn the widgets. They're going to tell you you got to be able to turn the widgets. It's up to you how you turn the widgets, as long as you can operate with other people. So I don't know if you agree. I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on Steve's question, but I don't, whether in the US or otherwise, if Zipline, Wing, Speedbird, Aero, as an example, has their own UTM system, I don't think that takes away I don't think that is a threat, if you will, to a national solution. As long as you said, there's interoperability. I'd love to hear from either one of you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, in my opinion, it's something that could be developed in parallel. Okay, so it's not a competition, but examples like this one can be a good place for demonstrations and the lessons learned. So what we are doing, for example, in Brazil, and I think it's a very good example to apply in Europe or in US, is that we have the industry focused in be service provider and develop solutions. And the same players we see here developing commercial solutions, they are part of the national program to develop the national standards. So we are there together with the DSEA, who is the controller, the authority who will control the airspace, right? Developing the requirements and everything in terms of quality, for example, informational layers, restrictions, qualifications for organizations to be service providers, latency in terms of signal and everything infrastructure. So we are there giving them inputs and showing them from our experience, substantiating what will work, what will not. So at the end, if we do it in parallel, we are accelerating the national environment, right? Providing the base in terms of requirements, in terms of conditions, qualifications to be service provider, and at the same time showing from a practical experience in sandbox or in other countries what work. It will depend of also the environment, the scenario, the problem you have in this specific national environment. If we are talking about cyber security attacks, if we are talking about drugs, transportation. So what will be the layers that will be important at national level, and what can we bring as industry as contribution? So we are there as contributors and not trying to distract them or trying to focus now in revenue or the commercial operation by itself. So, but we are learning together, and we are basically substantiating the baseline for the country with the examples we already have. So in Brazil, for example, it's working amazingly.
Well, and there are a lot of stakeholders here. I mentioned counter UAS. I think that has to be part of it. Manuel, you mentioned remote ID and the companies making that technology, not only that goes either in or on the aircraft, but then that reads those signals and how all of that works. I always think about my buddy Don Bershoff at True Weather Solutions, who's coming up next week, and that weather supplemental service, data service, and how critical that is to these operations and the sensors to go with it. Steve Adams asked this question, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Manuel. Do you think there's opportunities for cellular service providers to create some specialized feature sets for drones and UTM users? And what would some of those features be, if you think there are?
Well, one of our partners in Brazil is a big cell phone company, provider, one of the biggest in Latin America, if not the largest. But we had the opportunity and honor to be invited by Qualcomm, one of our partners in the U.S., to be part of the World Mobile Congress. I actually spoke there with the likes of the heads of T-Mobile and Verizon and others. There's a huge role that the cell phone companies will play on the UTM and UATM for the urban air mobility, right? Whether it is through specialized beams of 1 millimeter bands that will be connected to the more advanced aircraft, right? From our level of complexity in terms of the drone delivery and other types of drone surveillance, etc. The UTMs, once the UTMs providers in the area understand the level of connectivity in that area, will be it's the number one factor before you design a UTM is, okay, can we control and command that aircraft? Because if you have the signal, if you have the command, if you have the, for example, remote ID or other forms of identification that are asynchronous, or it just allows you to know the location, but there's nothing you can do to, for example, interfere with the flight or command and control the aircraft, there's very little that can be done. Okay, so
Yeah.
what's important is to guarantee the connectivity is number one. We actually have a project starting next week in the middle of the Amazon. That's about 44 kilometers from a mining site that we spent a year planning and guaranteeing the control and command of the aircraft, because despite being in the middle of the Amazon, there's a lot of helicopter traffic because of the big mining companies that operate around it. So we had to actually guarantee cell phone coverage, Wi-Fi, sometimes doing MASH, and also SATCOM. We actually had to put a SATCOM, a few of the developments that we had, which is very expensive, in our multi-rotor aircraft, which is unheard of. Not many multi-rotor aircrafts will have SATCOM. I know people in the Ukraine are doing it. Others, unfortunately, for other purposes. We like to see it for this coming up. For example, even with Starlink or the likes of other SATCOM providers, making this more affordable, lower latency, so you can guarantee the command and control. But from a financial viability perspective, the cell phone companies are absolutely a must, even if it is to slice a part of the data availability on that particular region, right? That's what we talked about here with all the providers. Can we slice a part of the network for the critical operations, especially if you're taking, for example, first responders activities, or urgent drone deliveries that are organ transplants, or other things that are more meaningful. You start prioritizing them on the network, because we have a situation here in Brazil, for example, where we operate uh, from a shopping mall. This is food delivery. It's the oldest food delivery service in the world, 3.5 years ongoing, 7 days a week, right? In the same location with the biggest food delivery company in Brazil. I cannot substantiate what's happening in China, but in the Western world, we know that this is the longest route from daily activities and taking food from shopping malls to strategic locations around the city.
And we
But I can
popped
tell
up
you
the
that.
picture too of medical drone operations. I mean, you raise a great point. And frankly, I'd be remiss not to mention that our month sponsor, one of them, is Nokia, who is providing 4 and 5G and actually has created a drone that, and working with Flying Line from a drone as first responder public safety, and kind of enterprise solutions. So if y'all missed that show, go back and watch it, especially you, Steve Adams, because you might learn a little bit more about what Nokia, again, a cellular provider, is doing in the space. So there are players out there. By the way, Viasat, satellite provider, was our sponsor in July. And we had, Jerry Hancock from Viasat on the show explaining how that works. And so again, check that out. All these videos are not only on the AUVSI's YouTube channel, but also on my website, P3 Tech Consulting, and the Dawn Zoldai YouTube. So lots of great information out there on these topics, folks. And by the way, Mark in the audience raises a great point. He says at the recent FAA drone and AAM symposium, their vision is to go from more of a common operating picture to kind of drone versus drone deconfliction, right, in the air. I mean, that's like, they're very thumbs down on corridors. I heard the word sandbox from Veruska. The idea is, to use your phrase, Manuel, let's lead by doing. Let's get out there and do it. And you're doing it in the Amazon. I want to pop up this picture of your DLV4. Is this the bird you're using in the Amazon for those long hauls that you've just been talking about?
It is one of them. It is one of them. We're testing both. We're testing the long range, but also we made our multi-rotor aircraft, because it's more resistant to wind and rain, part of the work. So we're actually doing 44 kilometers with a multi-rotor with 5 kilos of payload. It's been very efficient. So we're fortunate to have either option. The VTOLs are more sensitive to windy conditions, as we know very well. So depending on the conditions there, we may choose one versus the other.
All right. Well, very cool. And you've got, again, everybody out there, Manuel's been on the show before. I've written a lot of articles about Speedbird and the DLV. DLV, by the way, for delivery 1, the DLV2, the DLV4, and a lot of the firsts that have happened with those particular aircraft. So, pretty wonderful. All right. So Manuel, can we talk at all about some of the Homeland Security efforts that, I don't want to get out ahead of your team, but if you can at least tease, since we are in Protectors and Defenders Month, some of the things you have brewing, and when we can look forward to hearing more, kind of on that Homeland Security / defense front.
Excellent. First of all, we cannot do everything by ourselves, right? So we have great partners. You mentioned some of them, right? Can do, as a great operator in Israel that has partnered with Speedbird to develop technologies as well. Highlander on the UTM, but we work with other UTM providers as well. But Highlander intentionally is the company that we chose to do the UTM here in Brazil with them, with the support of Can Do. But we also have Elsight. For example, we're talking about connectivity. It's extremely important. I do recommend a system like Elsight, but we have the first-hand experience in what Elsight can do. As I mentioned, connectivity is key, and being able to communicate drone to drone is important, but deconflicting even before you take off That's actually quite important as well. So the UTM, we believe that it is the way forward. I see this in Israel every month when we operate on the Israel National Drone Initiative. For the last 3 years, we've been there. We just came back a month ago, operating daily, and you can see what they do. They throw civil aircraft, private. They do, multiple drone missions around the same area to see how the systems can be interconnected, can be sharing information, right? Can be leveraged to deconflict before the missions are even initiated, and adjust that. Exactly what was been mentioned here as well in terms of the population density, dynamic routing, especially because you have schools at from 7 in the morning until 3 p.m. After 4 p.m., you can fly over, right? Having this type of intelligence on a system can be quite important.
I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, maybe that's just so obvious. I never really thought about that. Like, hey, the school's out. There's going to be low risk, and not a bunch of people there during these hours. So this is more opened up in terms of, airspace. Wow, yeah, that is hyper dynamic when you're looking at ground risk and kind of opening up pockets of airspace, kind of correlated to those very, very changeable conditions. Wow. This is exciting. How how soon are we going to get there? Are we there? I mean, are you already doing this stuff?
Yes, yes, yeah. Even in Singapore with our partners, Skyports, you can see it done. For example, even the ships we are connected to marine traffic, so we can see all the marine traffic. And one of the no-flying zones is obviously we're not going to go over an oil tanker just because it's fun to do it. No one wants to do it. So the system that we designed, and connected to an UTM provider, avoids flying over ships. So the routes are and the ships can be moving, so it's sort of dynamic, right? There's a lagging, but it works quite well. So when we're doing ship to shore, it's a great way to. Highlanders also have a good product now that's coming up, for ports specifically. So we're very keen on using it. So starting with these small projects and really learning what really works in the field, leading by doing it. I think this is what needs to be done. Planning, it's great, it's very important, but until you really get your hands dirty and start operating and seeing the reality in the field, um, and that's why I like programs like the INDI, the Israel National Drone Initiative. What is being done now in the US, it has to start somewhere. So for us, not a problem, whatsoever. That's good
Well,
for everyone.
yeah, it's so interesting you meant, you'd think the defense side, Homeland Security side would be like light years ahead, right? I mean, just with my background in the United States Air Force, I mean, we've been flying drones like what seems like forever. But when you think about in the homeland, not in a deployed or combat environment, those bases or posts for the Army, they're very much like a city. And just now, the military is realizing, oh, look, we can use drones to inspect the flight line. We can use drones to deliver packages to families that live on the base. And, so we're just now seeing, Manuel, some of this happening in the US. By the way, everybody, next week, Grand Sky in North Dakota, they're going to be doing a product release with us about their Project Ultra, which is exactly this. It's exactly deliveries, on Grand Forks Air Force Base and outside, where you're bridging the civilian community and the military, which will be, in my mind, one of the first times this is ever going to be done. Because military bases don't like having drones from off base coming on. So this is going to be really, really interesting. Manuel, maybe we can get you involved in this. I'd love to get Speedbird up to North Dakota. We can talk more. Speaking of talking more and seeing you, Veruska, I don't think I'll see you, but maybe I will. Las Vegas. Where's the next shows you guys are going to be at? Veruska, are you going to be at IAM Madrid in Spain or somewhere, some other show coming up soon?
In Spain, probably I will be there,
Well,
and
good.
we
I'll
will.
see you because I'm going.
Yeah, yes, and we will also be in London in Drone X also this year. So it's the second show that will be important for us here in Europe also to demonstrate how we are scaling and increasing the robustness that will be necessary for any operations we will do here with the new drones.
Well, that's so exciting. Maybe Manuel doesn't have to fly around as much since you're in Europe and you can cover down on all the European shows, but I look forward to meeting you in person soon. And then Manuel, you are actually going to be flying to the United States for a commercial UAV in Las Vegas. Is that right?
That is correct. I'm actually on the road right now, going to the airport. Our factory here in Brazil is 4 hours away from São Paulo, the big city. So I'm driving there. We're flying to the Northeast. We have operations there, so I'll be there for 2 days. Then go to Uruguay for a new deployment. Right? Stay tuned for more. And
Okay.
then Uruguay and Argentina. So from there, I fly to the U.S. See my kids in Jacksonville, and then fly to Las Vegas.
Oh my
That's
gosh, I'm exhausted
that's
just
how it is.
listening to that. But if you can fly in on Monday, Labor Day, if that's even possible, just want everybody out there to know, of course, Manuel, you're invited. My partner CareSoft and P3 Tech, my company, are hosting a social event on Monday night, Labor Day, September 2nd at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas from 5 to 7. If you guys go on my website under events, you'll find the link tab. I've also been posting it in my newsletter, which you better sign up for, and on LinkedIn. So please just sign up. It is free. If you don't sign up and just show up, we might not have enough drinks and food. But if you sign up, we might have a good idea and make sure that's all covered down on. So hopefully, I look forward to seeing you again in person. Last time I saw Manuel was at Exponential. He was on our live stream, the full crew live we did from the floor there with Eloisa, his lovely wife and partner in this adventure. They're called Speedbird Aero. So looking forward to seeing both of you soon. All right, we only have a couple minutes. Our time has flown by, as I knew it would. And what I want to do is give each of you, a minute or two to go ahead and kind of close us out. So Veruska, I'm going to start with you and then we'll end with Manuel. Why don't you, whatever concluding remarks you want to say, and welcome to the team. And so great to have you on the show.
Yes. So about the topic and I think the UTM, one of the next steps that's very, very important is the inclusion of the public safety stakeholders. So we see this in our discussions in Brazil. So basic questions, for example, how can I be conspicuous and at the same time keep the secrecy of my operation? So this kind of question from police and the other authorities that they will be there, they will share their space with us. So how they can trust us as service providers to offer services and keep the secrecy regarding the operation and the correct cybersecurity level they expect from our systems. So I am very excited because we are now in this exact step, and I think will be important globally. So this kind of discussion about how we will coordinate the stakeholders, the public ones, the public authorities, and the private ones, and I am more than happy about be part of this whole discussion. Work with different authorities and different solutions, integrate our systems in different also UTMs, and be part of this as a whole, and more than happy about to discuss. Also, all of you can add me on LinkedIn, and I love talk about the topic like you can see, and it will be a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here today, and will be a pleasure always talk about AAM and the drone topics.
Very awesome. Well, thank you so much, Manuel. Go ahead and close us out and make sure that tell folks how they can reach you as well.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Don. Once again, a pleasure and honor to be with you here sharing this information. We want to reaffirm our commitment to the U.S. market, right? We are very keen on entering the U.S. market. That's why we keep working, we keep monitoring, keep involved. Nobody said it's going to be easy. Nobody said that. It is the most complex airspace in the world, right? Let's not kid ourselves. We knew this would be challenging. So our job is to just like how to eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Is to learn one piece at a time, pull it together, piece by piece. So when we arrive there are a lot of companies that can invest and spend money on projects that they believe that will pin up to be, we don't have much resources to burn. So we have to be very pragmatic when it comes to operations that are commercially viable, keep the commercial viability of the operation so we can scale, right? Talk to the regulators, work with the regulators, but also we cannot forget the population, the people that we're operating around, right? So that has to be a very big discussion. Everywhere we operate, we talk to people. We bring this to the areas that we operate around, because people don't like to think they're going to be being filmed, or they're going to be hearing the noise. So once we start talking about it and we start presenting our plans, and that's what we want to do, is to learn in the US how we can operate safely, what the FAA it wants, what not to be at odds with anyone. Here in Brazil is the same thing. NAC, which is the FAA here, they're very conservative, and they don't want to have any issues with this technology. Nobody wants to be the first one to fail. So we need to understand that and borrow from the experiences globally. That's why Veruska is here. That's why Speedbird took a step to Europe to learn, because they seem to be more I'd say bullish and advanced on the regulatory side. On other parts, not so much. The US has a lot of companies that are doing incredible work in our area in drone delivery. So we have to leverage everything here, and look at the jobs that are meaningful, and that we can use the drones scalably, and then take it step by step until you reach our objectives, which is full scale in a few years. So anyways, thank you so much. You can reach me also on LinkedIn. I have my cell phone. Anybody wants to reach me, a cell phone, you can call me at any time. I love talking about drones and learning and listening to what the people are doing as well. Don, I'm not sure if you have it, but it's even a Phoenix number, because I grew up in Phoenix. So 602-561-0426. So
And not
thank
only
you.
that, but you can meet him in person if you're coming to Vegas. And so there you have it. Well, guys, we are a little bit over, and my producer's going to kill me if I don't wrap it up. And hey, everybody out there, we really appreciate you, especially the folks jumped in the chat asking really great questions. Thank you all, and thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Veruska. Really great update. Great fit for Protectors and Defenders Month, as we think about not only public safety and defense, but also UTM and protecting and defending those skies. So thank you for everything you're doing. Really excited to hear more and watch you guys grow and thrive. And in the meantime, everybody, we are out of here.